everybody, it's Julie, Kansas City girl in a Colorado world. This is Flosstube number 83. Today is Saturday, July 3rd. It's been about 2.5 weeks since my last video, and I had a lot of things going on, and I have a lot to show you. I took a little last minute short trip to California. I went to San Francisco and Sonoma country, like wine country. And I was there like 4 or 5 days. And like I said, it was kind of a last minute, didn't have, time to go see, Abby Top Knot Stitcher or any of the other stitchers, floss tubers who live in that area. I didn't really even tell anybody I was going. I have family who lives in San Francisco, and my partner has family who lives in San Francisco, so we were pretty busy with, you know, family things, and it was a quick turnaround trip, but I got some exciting stuff to show you guys. I'll show you guys in a little bit. First things first, previous finishes. This is something I've been doing at the beginning of my videos. This year I am doing kind of just like almost like a little Facebook time hop to what I was doing a year ago. So in the last 2.5-ish weeks, 1 year ago, what did I finish? What was I stitching on? Well, I finished my third house in my own designed Christmas in Nantucket trio. So this is from my design company, Hemlock Rye Stitchery. I will link below if you want to go check out the patterns. You can get them on my Gumroad. They are free or pay what you want. And this was the first, like my first release, I guess, was this set of houses. So the third house, I believe I called this one Keynes Street. This is finished as a flat fold with some really pretty Christmas fabric on the back. It's stitched on 32 count, like raw linen, mostly DMC, and the house color is, I can't remember, off the top of my head. Honestly, I'm not sure. I really can't remember. It might be a Weeks Dye Works, but I'm not entirely confident about that. Could be a Classic Color Works. It's in the pattern. But anyway, mostly DMC with one fancy floss. And let me show you, I've already in previous videos shown you the first 2 houses in this trio, but since this is the third and final, let me just show you the others. This was the first house. This was Cherry Street. And so see, they're finished identical. And then this was the second house, which was Orange Street. So if you have any interest in stitching Christmas in Nantucket houses, you can go to my Gumroad and pick those up. I know several people have actually finished this set of houses, and I did design a border. If you wanted to stitch them all together in a row, which a couple of people have done, there is a border you can go grab as well to kind of tie them in. So again, you can click on the link below if you want to go look at those patterns. The other thing I finished about a year ago was a small Jeanette Douglas design. It's called Take Time to Collect. And I had this like lingering as a work in progress for so long, and I finally was like, I just need to get that out and finish it. And then once I got it out, it stitched up super duper fast. This is stitched, I think, on 36 count. Picture this plus oaken or earthen. It might be earthen. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's earthen. It came with like a silk floss pack and all the beads and charms. It features some fun specialty stitches, some that I had never done before, because I believe, am I making this up? No. The strawberries, I think it was Queen Stitch, which I had never done before. I remember I had to like Google how to do those. And I don't know if I have anything else I need to say about that. It was really fun to stitch. I finished it as a little flat fold, and I have another one of these that I need to get to. They're really pretty, they stitch really fast, and you get to play with some fun specialty stitches, so those are nice. And then my other, let's see, I just have 2 more finishes, and they're small. They were small, quick little things. So last summer, right around the same time that I started designing, Jennifer, Whistle Stop Stitcher, also started designing. I think right at the same time. I think we both kind of randomly dropped some patterns in June. So I don't know. I feel like, I've always felt like a kindred spirit connection with Jennifer, but I feel like that just makes us even more connected in some way. But anyway, she was inspired last summer by all of the stuff that was going on. I'm sure you all remember, but there was quite a movement going on in the summer. Even though we were all stuck at home under quarantine, there was a social justice movement after the murder of George Floyd. Well, I shouldn't say there had always been a movement, but there was a renewed participation, interest, people listening and learning and growing and speaking out. And a lot of people in the cross stitch community, whether Flosstubers or just Instagrammers, Facebook people, a lot of people were, kind of, I don't know how I'm trying to phrase this, but there was a lot of talk in our community. And one thing that Jennifer had done was she was compelled to create some designs, especially because at that time there was this counter side of the cross stitch community that was very much just shut up and stick to stitching. Who cares about politics? Who cares about Black Lives Matter? Who cares about all this stuff? I just want to see your cross stitch. Shut up and entertain me. That was the sentiment of some people. I'm sure all of those people have left my channel and are no longer here watching me. But Jennifer was inspired to create, that was a long way to say that Jennifer was inspired to create this quick little pattern that says a stitcher's place is in the resistance. That crafts are political, and also this is my channel or my Instagram or whatever. This is mine. I can talk about what I want. I can show what I want. I can say what I want. If you don't like it, you don't have to stay. There are so many Flosstubers out there that there's someone for you, I promise. But basically, no, I'm not just going to shut up and stick to stitching. So that was kind of Jennifer's thought, and that was my thought too. So I stitched this on, I believe, 40 count picture that's plus Meyer, and the floss is, I don't recall at all. I have no idea. It's purple, and it doesn't even look like it's variegated to me. It might have been. Anyway, I finished this also as a little flat fold. I was really into flat folds at that point in my in my journey last summer. So there was that. And then Jennifer released right around that time another pattern, which I also stitched up, and it was also a very quick stitch. And it says, I run on feminism, caffeine, and social justice. This is on fabric. What is this fabric? I think, you know what? I think this was a fabric that Diana from It Is Kismet Stitches had sent me. That she had dyed herself, I believe. I'm pretty sure. I could be misremembering, but I'm pretty sure that Diana dyed that. And then it's stitched with DMC Etoile. And I also finished this. I finished this as a nice little flat fold. So those were my previous finishes. And then I finally have a finish. I shouldn't say finally. I had to finish last video as well, but I don't know. I feel like I'm really, 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 really off the pace this year on finishes. Like I don't, it just, to me, it doesn't feel like I'm finishing anything very, very often. Anyway, I did have a finish. I finished Owl Forest Embroidery Father Mushroom. This was something I had started, I believe, in May during Owl Forest Mania. And I had gotten like, you know, a nice little chunk done. And then I had kind of set it aside thinking that I would get back to it eventually, but no immediate plans. But I had finished my lunchtime stitching project I was doing the Cozy Cafe from Frosted Pumpkin, which is the releases in monthly installments, and I was all caught up. Now the next part has come out, so I'll have to get back to that. But I was caught up and I had a week of like, now what? And I just like grabbed this because it was still like sitting out. It was still on the Q snap. It was like just easy to grab and take with me to work. And then I was like, you know, I could just finish this. I'm so close. So I did. So this was a kit. So this is the fabric it came with, all the floss it came with. And this fabric does not like to show up really well on video because it's a deep like gold. It's really beautiful. I actually really, really, really love this fabric. Let me see if they say what it's called. I know they use Zweigart fabrics. They don't say. It just says Zweigart 32 count. So I'm not sure exactly what the color is, but it's this gorgeous gold. And the camera kind of isn't sure what to do with it and tries to make it a cooler tone, but it's a very, very warm fabric. So you can probably see as I come in, it's gonna like kind of shift the color a little bit. But anyway, it's done. It was really fun to stitch. The border got a little annoying because it is just a repeat on all four sides. So it wasn't hard to stitch by any means. It just got a little bit annoying because I was, you know, okay, I'm stitching the same thing for the fourth time, you know, so, but it went fast. It went really fast. So there's Father Mushroom. My finish. So those are all of my finishes. And then I actually don't have a lot of works in progress whips because, like I said, I was traveling. So for 5 days of the last, you know, 17-ish maybe, I was on the road. And you know how that goes if you've tried to, I shouldn't assume you know what I'm talking about, but a lot of you probably know that when you're on the road, vacation, travel, you usually bring a bunch of projects thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm going to do so much stitching. And then like you totally don't. That's what happens to me every time. I always bring like 3 projects because I'm like, oh, maybe I'll finish one or maybe I'll finish a second one. And then I never even like finish the first one, but I always bring 3, if not more, but at least 3. Anyway, all that to say, what I was stitching on for those 5 days, I cannot show you yet because I'm model stitching for an upcoming design and it's not ready yet. So with that in mind, I only have 3 works in progress to show you because the bulk of my time was working on the model stitch. So, sorry, I was thirsty. It's very warm here today. So I actually worked on 3 stitch-alongs, 3 sals. So the first one was The Dark Queen of the Sea by Autumn Lane Stitchery. I fell behind. I really fell behind. So on July 1st, they released the next part, which was this section over here. I was doing pretty good with this, and then in May, they released a section. It was all of this, and it's like over 5,000 stitches, and I just, you know, can't. I can't keep up. It's a lot. It's a lot. But it's beautiful. It's gorgeous, and I will do it. But I am lagging. I am not done with May. I have not started June, and now July has come out. The good news is that this is really the bulk of the stitching. My understanding is that the next part is going to be like back stitching and beads, and that really like all the stitching is done. So I'm just still plugging away at this. I am not covering up her nipples. I don't care anymore. If you care, look away. I usually try to cover them up, but you know what? I don't even know where the pasties are, and I don't care. This is stitched on the special fabric that Leslie from Under the Sea Fabrics dyed for this stitch along. It's called Bewitched. It's 32 count linen. And here we go. So I've been working down here at the bottom. It's actually really fun to stitch. It's just so much stitching, but it's fun because for me, you could probably see, I kind of like outline the color I need and then I fill in. So it's pretty mindless. Once you get your outline, you can just kind of sit and not have to stare at the pattern. But it's a lot. It's just a lot of stitches, but it's looking really, really, really good. You may notice I did not stitch the corners up at the top because I just wasn't sure about those. And I'm still not entirely sure what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get the bottom done and then see how it looks. If it looks like something needs to be up here to balance the bottom, then I'll figure it out then. I'm kind of thinking she might look great without anything, but we'll see when the bottom's done, how I feel about that. But here she is. The only other change I made was her hair. I did convert the hair entirely because my friend Victor, Flawed Sir on Instagram, when the part with the hair came out, he messaged me and he's like, so you're doing red hair, right? And I was like, well, I hadn't thought. And then I was like, ooh, Ariel. Yeah, I'm doing red hair. So that's the only change I made. She's beautiful. She's just a lot of stitching. A lot of stitching. But beautiful. So I am hoping to get back to her this month. I still don't know, like, you know, about getting caught up, but I am hoping to get back to her. The next thing I worked on was the Modern Folk Embroidery Stitch Along. I am unfortunately still on June, although the July section just came out on July 1st. Here's what the pattern will look like when it's done. It's not a mystery. We knew the whole design going in. It's just, oh, that's upside down. We knew what this is going to look like all along. It's just that you don't get the pattern until the month. Like, it's just broken up in 12 pieces. So I'm determined to keep up with this one. Like I said, I am still on June. So I do need to get caught up on June and then I can start in on July. This is on the Q-snap and I'm not going to take it off because I'm actually going to get back to this really soon. So sorry. You've seen it. If you watched my videos, you have seen the overall because it's, you know, and on my Instagram, after I finish each month, I do post a picture of the whole design. But here I am on June, so I still have, you know, I have to come down here with the border, and then this is all a ZZ fill-in, and then this border kind of comes over here. But it's not, it's a lot of stitching, but it's very pleasant. I always have like a really good time stitching this. Oh, this is 40 count Fortnite fabrics in Caravan Tan, and the floss is from Valdani. It's silk floss. The colors are really like numbers, but I believe if you were to search for it, it's usually called Mossy Green and Deep Sea, I think. But they can be difficult to find. But they're very, very pretty. And then the last thing I have been working on is the Owl Forest Embroidery free year-long stitch along. It's a free stitch along. It's a huge pattern. It's so generous that they do this for us. Last year they did the 100 Owls, and then the year before that they did a Wizard of Oz. So this one I was caught up, but yesterday they released the next section. So now I have 2 weeks to do that little section, and then I will be caught back up. I'm stitching mine on 40 count Vintage Country Mocha, and I'm using the floss pack from Owl Forest. And with this last section, we actually got to finally use like the last 2 colors that we hadn't used yet. So if you kind of just look at this part over here, this is all the colors from the floss pack are finally in use. So last I showed this, I was still up here on the bunny, I believe. Or the rabbit, sorry, the white rabbit. So I did the next section, which was Alice falling, and then I just finished this next section, which is just some little motifs. It's been really fun to stitch. It's really actually pretty easy to keep up with. They release a section every 2 weeks, but they're pretty small, especially when you consider them next to the Modern Folk Embroidery Fruits of Plenty stitch along and the Autumn Lane Stitchery Dark Queen of the Sea stitch along. These parts are much more manageable. So I am hoping to keep up with this one, and I'm having a lot of fun with it, and the Owl Forest flosses are really nice. So hopefully that's another, I've committed to a lot of stitch alongs, but I am having fun with all of them. I did want to point out the project bag that I got from my friend Jen, Jasmine Ravenclaw on Instagram. She makes these beautiful project bags, and she made me this one specifically for this stitch along. So what I really like about her project bags is she does this faux leather, and it just makes them feel a little bit more luxurious and a little bit, they're more sturdy too. She made me a front pocket, and then of course the project bag itself. So this is perfect. It fits an 11 by 11 Q snap, and it's beautiful, and it's really well made because everything she does is perfection. So if you don't already know, if you go to her Instagram, Jasmine Ravenclaw, she makes these project bags. She occasionally just puts them up for sale kind of like randomly. And she does different, she'll do different prints. But also she will do custom. So like I know several people who have messaged her and said like, I want one with this or that. And then she like sources the fabric and makes them the project bag, or she makes like bags. So one thing that she did not make for me, but that she posted first, she posted on her Instagram, and I was like, me, please, is this project bag. So this is from Tula Pink's new fabric line, which is called Curiouser and Curiouser, which is a Alice in Wonderland inspired fabric line. And so this is just the same style as the other bag, but with a purple faux leather. The lining is also from that same line, and it's really cool. So this is another one of Jen's project bags. And again, this was one that she just like posted that she had, I think like 3 of them for sale. And I was like, I would love one. So go check out Jasmine Ravenclaw if you're in the market for a project bag or a bag. That was a little bit of haul, but actually I was ready to move on to haul because I've shown you all my stitching. So what did I buy? Funny you should ask. I bought a lot of things. So, okay, first thing, I bought a sticker from Night Spirit Studios. I also bought a mug, but it's not here yet. When it gets here, I'll show you. Yeah, I saw this and was like, yep, need that immediately. So if you see this beautiful, oh, I forgot to talk about, I rearranged, right? Like last video you saw, my books had been rearranged, but I hadn't put all my like stuff, my knickknacks back up, behind me. And so now I have. So I tried to like just change the view for you, bring in like new stitching for you to look at. So anyway, this was the Night Spirit Studios free pattern. I lap danced for Satan. It was after all the controversy about Lil Nas X, who is not the son of Lil Nas. I don't know where I got that impression. Sorry for spreading fake news in one of my videos. Anyway, this was her free pattern. And then she changed it to say, I cross stitch for Satan, and made it into a sticker. So yeah, I needed that, obviously. Put that back up. So I got that in the mug, but the mug's not here yet. By now you've probably figured out I have a love for Owl Forest Embroidery. Everything they do is so delightful. And I love their kits. They're like hand-dyed floss. Not hand-dyed fabric, but that's okay. But they're just so nice. They come like really cute, and the designs are great, and the flosses are beautiful. And I had made another order from Owl Forest Embroidery, and it got here. Now, I've been very lucky. All of my orders from Owl Forest Embroidery, which ships from Russia, have arrived within about 3 to 4 weeks. All of them. The longest was closer to 4 weeks, and one I think was just shy of 3 weeks. So I've been lucky. I've gotten all of mine within a month. I know that's not the case for others, and I mean, I think it's just a crapshoot. Like, I really don't think there's any way to know. So I know some people have waited 3 months for their order. I've gotten all of mine in 3 to 4 weeks. So I had placed another order because I had wanted the Dinosaur Forest, but it was out of stock the last time I ordered. So then it came back in stock, so I made another order. So I got the Dinosaur Forest Kit, which comes with all the floss and fabric. Their kits are just so nice. They come with everything you need except for scissors, basically. Like, they come with a needle minder. The floss comes on these little bobbins, and then you can wind them yourself. They're just very nice. They're very nice kits. And like I said, they come with a needle minder and a needle. So really the only thing you need to supply is scissors and maybe like a hoop, or you can stitch in hand if you like. That's the needle minder for this one. So I got Dinosaur Forest, and then I didn't want to just order the one thing, so I also grabbed another kit that I had wanted that was out of stock previously, and that was the Memento Mori pattern. So I grabbed those two things. And that's the other thing about Owl Forest, is they do restock. So if you go to look for something and it's out of stock and you're like, man, bummer, like, usually within a month or so it will be back in stock. So like, it's nice that things aren't like forever gone, you know, like, it'll be back. So what else did I get? Whew. I got a lot of stuff. So Nerdy Needle Design Company. Oh my gosh. I just got some needle minders from them. Well, they decided to start making thread keeps. And I was like, oh my goodness, I need. It's a Millennium Falcon. Look at that. And it's got a little magnet on the back so that your needle will stick on the front. Also, it smells so good. It smells like a campfire because it's a glow forge, so it's like a wood burning. So it smells like burnt wood, but like in a really good way. Like, not in an obnoxious way, just in a nice, like, subtle campfire-y way. I like it. I got another one, but I can't show you because it's a gift for a friend who has a birthday coming up. So I can't show you. My friend Deanna, she designs as Darling and Whimsy Designs. And she is having, I don't know if you would call it a sale, but until July 5th, if you purchase any of her stuff from her shop, she's donating the proceeds to, I don't recall the exact name of the organization, but it's Deanna is a Canadian, and it's for the Indigenous people who, if you paid any attention to the news, you've seen these absolutely atrocious, horrible stories about the mass graves that have been found at the residential schools where, years back, but not as many years back as you might think, not that long ago, these Indigenous children were like ripped from their families and sent to these like boarding schools. And there have been stories about the abuse and atrocities that the children suffered. And now investigations are underway, and they're finding these mass graves, like hundreds of children. Wow, I really brought the mood down. Sorry, all this to say that Deanna is donating proceeds from sales of her patterns to an organization to help Indigenous people in Canada. I bought Quirky Quakers Mythical Creatures Trio. Aren't those cute? We got Loch Ness Monster, a unicorn, and a Sasquatch. And there's a second, there's like a conversion for the Sasquatch where you can turn it into a Yeti. But it's the same pattern, but you just change the colors. But really you get 4 patterns with that. And then I got this Christmas pattern, All Roads Lead Home. It says, there is no Christmas like a home Christmas, for that's the time of year all roads lead home. And I've loved this since it came out. I just kept forgetting to like go get it. So I finally went and grabbed it. So not sure when I'll start that. It's, it's Christmas, so not anytime soon probably. Okay. So let me tell you about what I found in San Francisco. You may or may not be aware that San Francisco does not have a cross stitch shop, to my knowledge. However, needlepoint ink silks are located, like the shop is in the where they make the silks and dye the silks is located in San Francisco. Now needlepoint ink has a storefront and you can visit. Now it is a needlepoint shop, so there is no cross stitch in the shop, at least not that I could see. There's no like fabric or patterns. It's all needlepoint canvases and then like all of the fibers you need to make needlepoint. And needlepoint is beautiful, but I don't do it. I was really impressed though at the selection that they had. It seemed to me, not knowing much about needlepoint, that they had a ton of like canvases to choose from. Regardless, they make silk that cross stitchers do use often, and they're beautiful silks. So I popped into the store. The owner, I believe her name is Diane, right? Yeah, Diane. She greeted me as soon as I walked in. She was like, do you needlepoint? And I said, no, I cross stitch. And like before she could be like, oh, we don't do that here, I was like, but I use your silks in my cross stitch and I love them. And she was like, oh, great. And she was so nice and welcoming. She like chatted with my partner like the whole time I was shopping. I mean, she chatted with me too, but they were having a whole conversation as I was like drooling over the silk. So it's a tiny little shop, but they have their entire range of silks right there for you. And they have the traditional small skeins, and then they have hanks of every single color. Every single color was in stock. It was so lovely to just see them all. So it's like a wall what, I don't know how I'm trying to describe this. There's a corner, so it's like two walls of silk, and you can just see it all. Like, you can see it all side by side, and you can't do that online. Like, if you go looking for like a navy needlepoint ink silk, there might be 6 or 7 that come up, but the nuances between them are impossible pretty much to tell from online pictures. So being able to actually see them in person, and some of them are so very, very close. But when you hold them up side by side, they are different. So it was really, really lovely. I just grabbed a bunch of silk because that was all that really pertained to me as a cross stitcher. But one thing I didn't realize about needlepoint ink silks is that I thought they were all solid. Like, they don't have variegation in the colors. And so all this needlepoint ink silks I had ever seen were just solid colors. But as I was looking at the wall, I found a little section where they did have variegated colors. They're called Northern Lights, and they actually had quite a lot. And I did not buy all of them, but I bought all of the ones that kind of just caught my eye as, you know, being beautiful variegated silks. So some of them were really variegated. I tried to get the more subtle ones, but they did have some that were more dramatic. I think this was the most dramatic one I bought. Whoa, sorry, I was out of frame. This has quite a bit of variegation. But anyway, so I grabbed like just a bunch of those. I didn't know what anything costs. I don't think they're any cheaper if you buy them at the store. They could be. I have no idea. They're probably like the same price as if you bought them online. And then I bought 3 hanks. So I didn't have a specific project in mind. So I was trying to think of what I would do with a hank of silk. And what I was coming to was like a Quaker design, like a modern folk embroidery, beautiful, like one color Quaker design. And so I just picked 3 like dark, deep jewel tone hanks to someday find a pattern for. This is a royal blue, similar to like a DMC 820. This one's like a navy blurple. It's got a slight purpley tone. And this one's like a deep, deep green. And that's why what was so interesting about holding, like being able to compare these, because like I said, they had a ton of navies, but they had some that were more of like a dusty grayish navy, some that were like a true navy. This one, like I said, has a purple tone to it. This is a hank next to a regular skein, if you want to see like the size comparison. So a hank is 45 meters. And it's 8 ply. So, you know, DMC is 6 ply. So this is 45 meters of 8 ply silk. And a skein is 5 meters of 8 ply silk. So there is the size comparison there. So yeah, I just had a grand old time. We actually didn't have very much time to spend in the store. So I think we were in there for maybe 15 minutes. We were in a rush and I was only able to like just pop in really quickly. But Diane was absolutely lovely, so welcoming and friendly. And I'm so glad I got a chance to go. If you are in San Francisco, like pop in if you have an interest in needlepoint ink silks. Like I said, there's not much else there for a cross stitcher except for they did have all of the Rainbow Gallery fibers. Like they had the Petite Treasure braid and the ribbon and the silk lame and the fuzzy stuff, like all the Rainbow Gallery stuff. They had that as well. So if that's interesting to you, like certainly worth a visit. They're actually located in a really touristy part of San Francisco, like a part that is easy to get to if you are there doing touristy things. They are very close to the financial district and like Fisherman's Wharf and all the piers. So if you are going to San Francisco for a vacation, you're probably going to be in that area anyway. So it's literally like a 5-minute walk from like some of the piers. So go check it out if you're there. What else did I get? I'm still going. I got so many things. Satsuma Street released this pattern a few days ago, and it was an immediate buy for me. It's called Memento Mori. And it's just DMC colors. I need to get some black fabric for this. This is kind of a weird cut. It's pretty long. Like, I was looking at today to see if I had anything that would work, and I don't. If you're doing like 14 count Aida or 28 count even weave, you need a cut that's about 22 inches long, so you need a pretty good sized piece. But I just think it's beautiful. So I grabbed that as soon as I saw it. Okay, that's all the cross stitch stuff. I do have some books to talk about. So I think it's about to rain. If you don't have any interest to hear about books, that's totally fine. That's all I'm going to talk about, and then the video will be over, so you can turn off now and you're not going to miss anything. But if you'd like to hear about books, let's talk about books. So, I read quite a bit. First things first, I talked about in my last video that I have been doing a reread of all of the Outlander books, and when I went to say the author's name, I realized I had no idea how to pronounce her name, even though I've read her books for literally like over a decade. So I looked it up, and some of you like sent me links. It is Gabaldon, Diana Gabaldon. And this is the 4th book in the Outlander series. It is called Drums of Autumn. I have an original edition, like first printing. Look at that. This is the best thing though. Look at the author photo on the back. Sis. I think this came out in 1995. Let me look. 97. 1997. So look at the fashion. She's serving us some looks. Honestly, this woman looks better now than she did then. She looks amazing. Anyway, Diana Gabaldon. So this is the 4th book in the Outlander series. I know there was like an awkward edit in my last video because I had started I was giving like a brief like summary recap of like the Outlander series, primarily like book 1. And when I went to edit, it was like 15 minutes of me like telling you what happened in Outlander. And I was like, what am I doing? What am I doing with my life? So I edited all that out. So I'm sorry if it was a little abrupt or awkward, but it was way too long-winded. Anyway, it's going to be hard to talk about this without spoilers. These are going to be minor spoilers, but there will be some spoilers. So if you haven't read the books and really want to, or you haven't watched the show and you really want to, you know, keep that in mind. I'm not going to like go crazy with the spoilers, but like I'm going to say some things that you might be like, what? Oh. So, the Outlander series, I'm going to not do a 15-minute recap, I promise. If you're not aware, right? So Outlander books, she started publishing these like over 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Oh my gosh. These books have been around. Anyway, they feature a woman named Claire. She is, the first book starts with her. It's like the end of World War II. She's an English nurse who's been in the front lines of the war, has come home, and is going on like a second honeymoon reconnect with her husband, Frank. They were separated during the war, serving their country. And they are English people, so they have gone to Scotland for like a second honeymoon and to research Frank's family history. He had an ancestor who died at the Battle of Culloden, so they're in Scotland looking into that. And long story short, Claire stumbles into basically like a time travel portal and is transported back 200 years to 1700s Scotland. And then the story goes from there. Now, I know that sounds really like sci-fi, weird, mystical, but really these books are just historical fiction. They are really, really fascinating looks at what life was like in the 1700s, not just in Scotland. Claire and Jamie, the man she meets in the past, have adventures in France, the West Indies, Caribbean, and colonial America. So they are these looks at like history in that time, and there is this magic element where Claire time travels, but after that the magic is done. Like she doesn't have magic powers. Nothing else is magical. Like everything else is just like normal way of life. So if you can just get through the weird like time travel element, then they're really just historical fiction. Anyway, the books are very long. They're all about like 800 to 1,000 pages. This one was 870 something pages. And they're dense. They're not only are they long, but these pages are just full of words. They are very dense. And I am trying to do a reread because the next book comes out in November. So I discovered if I would just read one a month, I would be caught up in November. However, like these are really consuming a lot of time, because to read one a month, I have to read about 31 pages or so a day. And in some books, you can read 31 pages really pretty quick. But in these books, 31 pages is a chunk of your time. They're not fast reads. So I'm very much enjoying the reread, but it's a little bit of a burden. Like I'm really having to give like an hour or two every day to this book. So I'm doing okay though. I'm so far I'm good. I've started the next book, which is The Fiery Cross, and I am on track for that book so far, but it's only the 3rd of July, but I've kept up with my 31 pages so far. But regardless, I still love these books. They are fascinating to me. I love like seeing what life was like 200 years ago, and just all of the journey adventures that Claire and Jamie get up to. These books are very romantic. I know, I remember reading an interview where Diana Gabaldon said she didn't like that her books got like categorized as romance, especially when they were first published, but I can see why. I mean, they are historical fiction, but they are so, like, the romance between Claire and Jamie is just so like sweeping and intense. And then there's another romance, like a subplot romance that develops between Claire's daughter Bree and Roger. So that's also a very romantic love story. So, I mean, they are romances in my opinion. But I really love these books. Like they very much hold a very special place in my heart. I love the show. The show is such a great adaptation of these books. So in the 4th book, The Drums of Autumn, Claire and Jamie have found their way to America. This is before the Revolution. This is early American like settlers, still under British rule. And they have basically been like shipwrecked on the coast of Georgia, and then they've decided to make their way up north a little bit, because Jamie has an aunt who lives in, I believe, North Carolina. So before they sail back to Scotland, they decide to like go to the aunt, I think that they need money too. So like whatever, they're going to see their aunt. Long story short, they end up deciding to stay. They decide to stay and settle in America. And so this book is basically just about them kind of picking where they're going to settle and starting their journey as homesteaders in the American wilderness in the mountains of North Carolina. Meanwhile, Claire's daughter Bree, who is in modern time 1960s, discovers like a news so this is the spoilery bit. She discovers a news clipping that Claire and Jamie, she finds out that Claire went back to the past, found Jamie, great, but the news clipping she finds is that they have died in a house fire. So she decides she has to go back and try to change the past and warn them about the house fire. Claire and Jamie have tried to change the past before and have discovered that they really can't. They tried to prevent the Battle of Culloden. They tried to do different things to like affect the Jacobite uprising and found that nothing they did made any difference. So Bree knows that, but she's still like, it's my parents, like I have to try. So she goes back in the past to find her parents, and Roger follows her. And so this book is about their story as well as Claire and Jamie. And it's wonderful. If you like the Outlander books, you like the Outlander books. They're not for everybody. They're very long, they're very dense, they're very detailed, and they're detailed with more mundane things. So I know that some people really struggle to get through these books because although there is a lot of stuff that happens, it's also still like just a lot of like exposition and setting up scenes, describing like the nature and the environment, and just it's a lot of detail, which I very much enjoy, but I understand is not for everybody. They can be very slow moving for people, and they can be a little bit of a slog for people to get through. And in that case, I would say like go for the TV show. The TV show's great. So, but I love these books, and I will update you when I finish The Fiery Cross, which is the 5th book. The next thing I read was an ebook from the library. So I'll insert the picture of the cover. It's called Smoke Gets in Your Eyes by Caitlin Doughty. This is a nonfiction book, which I don't read a ton of, but Caitlin is a mortician, and this is her story of working in a crematory in California and just kind of talking to you about like the whole business of dying, of body preparation and cremation and embalming, and kind of her thoughts about this industry. And she's very critical of the death industry because she feels like a lot of it is really unnecessary and undignified and like a huge burden of cost and resources. And it was just really fascinating to kind of get that insider perspective. Parts of it are like absolutely disgusting. This book is not for like weak stomachs or faint of heart. She goes into detail about decomposing bodies that, the cause of death was traumatic or extreme, or the body wasn't discovered. I don't want to gross you guys out, but like she goes into detail. And the part that was like really tough, where I was like really like, oh God, was when she goes into extreme detail about the process of embalming a body. So, obviously not going to be for everybody, but if you found this as fascinating as I did, you might want to check this book out. It's really, I actually really learned a lot, and it was a lot of food for thought. It was sometimes hard to read because it just really forces you to like confront mortality and death, and that's an anxiety inducing thing to think about for most of us. So obviously not going to be for everybody, but I thought it was really great. And she has other books, and I plan to check those out as well. She also has a YouTube channel, so look her up because she does little videos about death and dying that I've only watched a few, but they're very interesting. So the next book I read was Mr. Impossible by Maggie Stiefvater. I buddy read this with my friend Andrea, the Stitchy Bookworm. I forgot to mention, she's also rereading Outlander with me as well. So she just finished Drums of Autumn. She was a couple days behind, but we're buddy reading the Outlander series again as well. But this is the second book in a trilogy by Maggie Stiefvater, but the trilogy is a sequel to the Raven Boys cycle, which I've talked about many times on this channel before. So the Raven Boys is a young adult fantasy series. I guess I would call it fantasy. It's set in it's a contemporary, but there's some fantastical elements. Anyway, the Raven Boys cycle is 4 books. Absolutely love that series. Talked about it before. After that series concluded, she did a spin-off series with one of the main characters, Ronan Lynch, and now she's doing a trilogy about Ronan Lynch. So I cannot really talk about this without having to do a whole recap, which is just a little much. You certainly would not want to go into this series without having first read the Raven Boys. There's so much background and context that you need before you can even understand this series. When the first book came out, it was called Down the Hawk. The author was like, no, you don't have to read the Raven Boys before you read this. It can stand on its own. And myself and several other people who have read it are like, sis, no, you need to read the Raven cycle or half of this is not going to make any sense to you at all. So keep that in mind. If you're interested in this series, I think you need to read the Raven cycle first. But anyway, the character Ronan Lynch from the Raven Boys, it is through the course of those 4 books, it's discovered that Ronan has a capability to enter in his dreams, enter a dream realm where he is able to pull things out of his dreams and bring them back to our world with him. So sometimes that's if he's having a nightmare, he might bring back a monster, or if he's having a weird dream, he might just bring back a weird object. But basically he can bring things back out of his dreams. As he discovers this power, he finally learns to control and wield it to where he can then enter his dreams specifically to get an item. If he has a need for something, he can go dream it and bring it back with him. And so he's becoming more skilled he's called a dreamer, and he's becoming more skilled at wielding this weapon. And so this trilogy is following this journey he's having where there are people who are trying to track down and kill dreamers because they think they'll bring about the end of the world. They're bringing things back from their dreams that they shouldn't. One of them may bring back a weapon of mass destruction and end all life on Earth. It's too dangerous. So there's this possibly government agency that is tracking them down. And what we discover is that Ronan isn't the only dreamer. There are lots of dreamers, and this trilogy is him meeting up with some of those other dreamers. This being the second book, it was definitely felt like a filler book to just kind of bridge that gap to the final book that's going to conclude everything. So there were parts of this where you were just kind of not much has really been happening, but I was still very entertained, and it was still for me a great read. There are some big reveals at the end, definitely some jaw-dropping oh my god moments, and I am very much enjoying this series. I love Maggie Stiefvater's writing. I just love her style. I love the way she writes. I love everything she writes. So I love Ronan Lynch. I really I love Ronan Lynch. So I'm loving this series. I cannot wait for the third. This one just came out, so it's going to be a year before we get the third probably, but my one criticism of this book is that there were certain characters that were barely in here that I just wanted more of. So without providing too many spoilers, Ronan has a boyfriend. We got a little bit of relationship interaction in the first book in this trilogy, and definitely was looking forward to getting more of that in the second book, and we got like almost none. So I was just sad. Like I needed more Ronan Lynch love angst. There is an explanation at the end of the book for why we didn't get so much, but I can't talk about it without spoiling it. So anyway, highly recommend. What else did I read? So I read the 4th Bridgerton book by Julia Quinn. And I've talked before about, I had some problems. I read the first Bridgerton book, which was called The Duke and I. And I talked in a video about how I really struggled because I was very much enjoying the book. And then there was a part towards the end of the book where to me it was like basically a sexual assault occurred, and it got totally glossed over. Like putting like a nice spin on it would be like it was a circumstance of like dubious consent. And it was like really gross. And it didn't get resolved in a way like I felt that even really addressed like the significance of it. It kind of just was like, oh, okay, it'll be okay. I forgive you. Let's move on. Those books were written a long time ago. I think it was like in the 90s that first book was written, and things have definitely changed in the historical romance genre. You can still find a lot of these what I would call problematic tropes, but they were certainly very prevalent in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So anyway, I was like, you know what, I'm not sure how I feel about it. I talked to a lot of you about it, kind of worked out some feelings about it. And I said, I'm going to just keep going. I'm going to read a couple more and kind of just see how I feel. So I read the second book and I read the third book. They were perfectly fine. I didn't really see any like problematic, troublesome things going on in those books. They were, very much run-of-the-mill historical romance. They were fine. And I knew I wanted to at least keep going and read to the 4th book because I had bought the 4th book when it was on sale for like $1 on Amazon Kindle. But after I had bought that book, and this was, I think, before I had read the first book, I heard there was a problematic something in the 4th book. But I didn't know what it was, but I had heard like, oh, there's something kind of bad in the 4th book. So I was like, I don't know. Now I'm just curious. I'm honestly like, I think I read it because I was like wanted to see what it was. So the 4th book is called Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. And there is something problematic in this book, unfortunately. And now I'm just disappointed. 2 out of the 4 books I've read from this author have really been pretty troublesome. So the 4th book features the brother Colin and his love relationship with a character named Penelope. And I'm reading it and everything's going really pretty well. Like I'm enjoying it. I'm having a good time. Everything's fine. And then I get to this part and I immediately was like, oh, this is what everybody was talking about. This is it. There's just this random scene. It felt very out of character. Very, very, very out of character. Where Colin just gets really mad at Penelope, and him being mad at her is fine. Like, he has a reason to be upset, but his reaction is like so crazy. He gets physical with her, and his internal monologue is him saying, I'm hurting her. This is wrong. This is bad. I don't care. I'm really mad. I've never been so mad. I can't stop hurting her right now. Like, it's just bizarre. It's like totally out of character for him and really scary. And also, like, why, Julia Quinn? Why did this need to be here? Like, he could be just like really upset, and they could have like a rift, and a little fight, and like, he doesn't need to bruise her. Like, that didn't need to happen. And then literally, like, the next page, all is forgiven, we've moved on. And that was sort of like in the first book with the consent issue. It was like, we moved on real quick and just like, everything's fine. Love overcomes all. So that's also really frustrating to me, that the characters don't like kind of like talk it out and work it out. Like, at no point is it addressed. Penelope doesn't say, hey Colin, like, that was unacceptable when you did that thing. Like, how will we move past this? Like, it's just like glossed over and all is forgiven. So that was incredibly disappointing. And if you had just taken out that one page of the book, it would have been a perfectly fine historical romance. I would have been perfectly content with it. But that one little unnecessary scene ruined it again. So I think I'm done. Like, I don't really see the point in supporting this author anymore. Like, the show was great. I loved the show. Like, the books have been okay. They haven't been stellar, outstanding. Like, they're really just okay. And historical romance is a dime a dozen. Like, there are other authors I can read. Like, 2 strikes, you're out, Julia Quinn. Sorry. I'm a little sad because the next book, I believe, is Eloise, and I actually really like that character, and I did want to read that. And I don't know that there's any more like super problematic things that happen in the next books, but like, I just can't anymore. Like, I've got other stuff I can read. So, sorry, Julia Quinn is canceled in this house. Okay, that's all I have. If you made it this far, thank you. I know I get really long-winded and really chatty when I'm talking about books. So I can't help it. Oh wait, that's not all, because I wanted to show you guys the books I got in San Francisco. I can't believe I almost forgot this. That's all I read. But when I was in San Francisco and Sonoma wine country area, I visited a few bookstores and I treated myself to some things. These were basically my souvenirs. This is all I brought back, besides all the silk. So one of the bookstores that we always go to when we're in San Francisco is City Lights. And if you are in San Francisco, I highly recommend that you check out City Lights. So it is right next to a bar called Vesuvio, where Jack Kerouac used to go drink absinthe. So City Lights bookstore is like a mecca for like the beat writers. And they've, over the decades, like transitioned that to be like this wonderful bookstore for indie writers, diverse writers outside the norms of publishing, like the basic publishing industry. So you can find, of course, like the regular bestsellers and stuff at the bookstore, but they also have this just like amazing selection of just like unique and indie books. So unfortunately, we only had like 10 minutes to spend in City Lights, so I was a little rushed, and so I didn't get a chance to really like sit and browse and really like look. So I was kind of just like looking at the wall of like staff picks and staff recommendations, and just like quickly like looking at things and going like, that looks interesting. Okay. So I just quickly grabbed a couple of books. So I got this first one, is called Funeral Diva by Pamela Snead. And this is actually a City Lights Books published. So their own publishing. So this is personal essays and poetry. It details her coming of age in New York City during the late 1980s, capturing the impact of AIDS on Black queer life and highlighting the enduring bonds between the living, the dying, and the dead. And then she confronts today's pressing issues and closes with the poet's reflections on the two pandemics of her time, AIDS and COVID-19, and the disproportionate impact of each on African American communities. So I thought that sounded like a really important and interesting read. And it actually will be probably a very quick read because it's only 148 pages, and half of that is poetry. So, you know, those obviously are going to read much faster. And then of course there is some actual like, you know, essays as well. Like this is, you know, prose, but a lot of it is poetry. So should be a really, really fast read. And I just thought, you know, there was a very interesting sounding book. And like I said, that the cool thing about City Lights is you can go in and find something like this that you're not going to find at Barnes and Noble. I also grabbed this book. This is another indie. This is from University of Iowa Press. And it is the Cleveland Heights LGBTQ Sci-Fi and Fantasy Role-Playing Club. I'll be honest, the cover grabbed me first, and then I thought it actually sounded really interesting. On Thursday nights, players assemble at this comic book store. And I mean, I'm not going to read you the whole synopsis, but it just sounded very interesting. So it's like a group of people who are meeting and doing like nerdy stuff, but it sounds intriguing. So I grabbed that. And again, like I didn't have a lot of time to think about these. I only had like 10 minutes. So I was just like grabbing stuff and not going like, do I really want that? You know, I just grabbed it and went. Oh yeah, while I was checking out, I grabbed this little postcard. So there's City Light Books next to Vesuvio. If you're in San Francisco, definitely worth a stop at both of those places. Go have some absinthe at Vesuvio and go get some books. So this was a total impulse purchase. And I sort of regretted it because it's really, really heavy. And I had to lug this through the airport on the way home. But this is a coffee table book. The Occult, Witchcraft, and Magic. It's a big, heavy book full of beautiful pictures. There's not much to read in here. There is some text. But it's mostly just a cool book to look at crazy illustrations. And I mean, look at this book. It's gorgeous. So total impulse. I'm sure I wouldn't have bought it if I had had time to think about it because it's really heavy and it was pretty expensive. So, okay, so that's what I bought at City Lights. So that's it. That's really it now. Okay. I don't even know how long this is. It's probably so long. All right, I'm going to leave. If you made it this far, you're just amazing. You're amazing. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.